me on that? And so we're going to do a little bit of digging in that regard this morning. John chapter 10, verse 1. If you forgot a Bible or you don't have one with you this morning, there should be a hardback black Bible somewhere underneath the chair in front of you. And you can find John chapter 10, verse 1 on page, is it 842 or 843? Somebody already there? Oh, no, nobody knows. What's it in yours? I think yours is the same. Oh, no, yours is not the same. Yours is different. 842? I was skipping ahead. Okay, 842. The Gospel according to John chapter 10, verse 1 on page 842 of those hardback black Bibles. By the way, if you don't have a Bible and you just had to grab that one in order to follow along with us, that one's now yours. You can just write your name in it, take it with you. Our ushers will replace it at the end of the service. John chapter 10, verse 1. If you're there, say I'm there. There. Jesus has been talking to the Pharisees most recently. He healed this blind guy. This guy was born blind, and a lot of the unbelieving Hebrews did not want to believe it. And then the Pharisees start to pick up what Jesus is putting down, and they're like, wait, are you saying we're blind? And Jesus does the Jesus version of if the boot fits. And then chapter 10, verse 1, truly. Well, that was a good impression of what the listeners would have done when he said truly. They would have, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, everybody say the door, but climbs in by another way, that man is a thief and a robber. And all the shepherds in the audience went, uh-huh. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him, the gatekeeper opens. The sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. A stranger they will not follow, but they will flee from him, for they do not know the voice of strangers. And then John inserts what may be potentially the most heartbreaking narrative aside in the whole Gospel of John. Because here Jesus just finished saying, my sheep are going to hear my voice, and they're going to get it, and they're going to follow me. Verse 6. This figure of speech Jesus used with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. The shepherd of the sheep is standing there, speaking out across all these sheep. And he's saying, my sheep are going to hear it and follow. And they can't hear it. And they're not following. Jesus uses two images. Just so you know, if this is your first time here, we normally don't have paintings up here. But as we've been walking through the Gospel of John, an artist in our church has been painting the I am statements. John, you can see back here. I know you can't see it on the stream. Sorry for those of you at home. There's the I am the bread of life back here. I am the light of the world right here. And then today, I am the door of the sheep, and I am the good shepherd. And Jesus is going to use these illustrations Not only is he going to say that he's a good shepherd, but he's going to demonstrate that he's a good shepherd, because while he speaks out to all of these sheep who are listening to him and they're not getting it, he's going to do what good preachers do and say, let me say it another way. He doesn't owe them an explanation. It is incumbent upon them to hear his voice and follow. He doesn't owe them an explanation, but he gives them two, just so that he might draw them unto himself. Both of these illustrations tell different sides of the same story, but there's one big takeaway that I want you to hear from this passage and hear from these two illustrations of Jesus being the door and being the good shepherd, and it's this: access to salvation belongs to Jesus alone. Amen. Access to salvation belongs to Jesus alone. Do you hear that? It's the sound of people unsubscribing from our YouTube channel this week, because this is not a popular message, that access to salvation belongs to Jesus alone. Last summer, I had an opportunity to go on vacation with my folks. It was kind of a big last hurrah of a vacation. Those of you who know some of the things that have been unfolding in my family over the last several years know that travel is getting harder and harder for my folks. And so we kind of did one big last hurrah to a place that we used to vacation when I was a kid, and that was Orlando, Florida. And we went to Orlando, Florida, and we went and did a whole bunch of the Disney stuff, and it was really cool. But by far, the highlight of the trip for me was that we went to Animal Kingdom, which is one of the parks in Disneyland. I love animals. And my kids had been watching the show that goes behind the scenes at Animal Kingdom. You get to meet all the doctors and everything. It's a reality show about how they take care of the animals. And let me just tell you, it's inspiring. Seeing these people's passion to take care of these animals, and they go to extraordinary lengths to make sure that their lives are as good as possible. And my kids have been watching the show, and we're walking through this one exhibit, and it's an exhibit where you can actually walk up to a window, and the operating table for the veterinary facility is behind a pane of glass. And you can watch them on the other side perform operations on the animals, which they have to do regularly. There's so many animals that almost every other day there's some kind of an operation. And they're back there and they're working on this little bird. He's a little tiny thing. He's asleep. He's having a great day. He has no idea what's going on, right? And so they're helping him all this stuff. And my daughter looks back and she goes, "That's Dr. Jeff from the TV show." And I'm like, "Go say hi." And she's like, I'm like, "No, go say hi, go say hi." And she walks up to him and says, "Hi, Dr. Jeff, I've seen the show." And she's like, "Oh, great. Oh, that's fantastic." And she goes, "How's Dugan?" And Dugan was a baby rhinoceros that was on the show. And you know that those shows, they film them in advance and then put them out, right? And he had to break the news to her that Dugan had passed away. And you could see the tears fill his eyes, right? These people are passionate about their jobs. And she says, "I'm so sorry." And he's like, "That's okay." And he kind of gave her a hug, and we walked away. Then, about 10 minutes later, we turn around, there's Dr. Jeff again. And 10 minutes ago, Ryan was Dr. Jeff's biggest fan. Now, Dr. Jeff is Ryan's biggest fan. And he walks up to her and he gives her this pin. It's a little Mickey. It's got like all sorts of different animals on it. And says, "Hey, I just wanted to give you this." And one of the retail ladies is standing there. She's like, "Do not trade that pin." And Ryan goes, why not? And she's like, because that is for operation staff only. So then about 10 minutes later, we turn around, there's Dr. Jeff again. And he goes, would you guys like to see something cool? Yes. Ryan goes, yes. I like jump in front. Yes, we would like to see something cool. And I'm pushing my dad in a wheelchair. My mom had stayed back at the hotel this particular day, so it's my family of 4 and my dad. And he walks us through a door that we didn't even see was there, back through the hallways. I'm realizing these are people's offices. We go through a maze. It's a total maze. I would not have known how to get anywhere. And we walk through this door. And I was confused at first because it's the pane of glass for the operating room, but we're on the other side of it. We are standing in the operating room, and we are having conversations with the doctors who have been on this show. And all these guests who paid all this money, the same money I paid to get into Disneyland, Animal Kingdom, they're all like, and I'm like, this experience right here, you'd pay tens of thousands of dollars to get this kind of access. There was nothing I could have done that would have gotten me through that door. We had to know the person who could grant us access to where we went. It was a life-changing experience. That was the best illustration I could come up with. And it's still lame compared to what Jesus offers us.
Man, that's right.
Man, isn't it true that once you meet Jesus, every time you turn around, oh, he's back again. Isn't it true, as we will see in this passage this morning, that as we follow him, he leads us to places we could not otherwise go, namely to our salvation. As he's going to put it in this passage, life abundantly. Access to salvation belongs to Jesus alone. So much so that even when the negative forces start pulling on this conversation of access to salvation, we saw right there at the very beginning, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door but climbs in by another way, that man is a thief and a robber. That's a negative force pushing and pulling on this whole conversation about access to salvation. Jesus is so much the exclusive access to salvation that even when there are negative forces at play, they still reveal how good he is and how exclusive the access is. Let me see if I can show you. Access to salvation belongs to Jesus alone. In the first 6 verses, we see imposter shepherds help reveal the true flock. Jesus is so much in control and so much a shepherd and so much a Lord over this whole process that even when there are imposters who would say, follow me if you want to live. Even when there are imposters who would say, this way, follow me. They still reveal the true flock. Verse 1, truly, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door but climbs in another way, that man is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the gatekeeper opens. The sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. A stranger they will not follow, but they will flee from him, for they do not know the voice of strangers. Keep in mind that Jesus is preaching into a moment where there are spiritual leaders abound. There are Pharisees, there are Sadducees, there are people who are in political high places of leadership who have a spiritual emphasis on their role. And Jesus is saying, how someone gets into you, how someone gets into the place where all the sheep are, matters a lot. Do they come in from the front door, or do they come in from the side? And one of the things that he is saying about this is that you will know when the genuine shepherd comes because his flock will know his voice. They won't listen to anybody else. They'll listen to him. And as I already stated at the beginning of the sermon, then there's this heartbreaking verse in verse 6, this figure of speech Jesus used with them, but they did not understand what he was trying to say to them. What he was saying to them. There's so many people in this crowd, and they've been following the Pharisees. They've been following the Sadducees. They've been following the elders of the people gladly. And they can't understand what Jesus is trying to say. And in an act of supreme mercy and grace, chapter 10 doesn't end in verse 6. Jesus keeps going. You can see it in the way that it's constructed from verse 6 to verse 7. This figure of speech Jesus used with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. Verse 7. So, Jesus again said to them. He's like, let me cut across the field another way. Let me see if I can help you see this. Truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. This is the second thing that I want to show you. Access to salvation belongs to Jesus alone. Imposter shepherds help reveal the true flock. Because those who do not truly follow Jesus, those who do not truly know God, they chase after all of the imposters who come in the side way and not through the front door. Then this, destructive thieves help identify Jesus as the only life access. Jesus again said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have what? Life, and have it abundantly. Jesus is saying there's a difference between the imposter, who's a thief and a robber, and the only access to salvation that is given, and that is Jesus, the door. I believe that Jesus is going to expand on this later on in John chapter 14. What you find is that as we're walking through the book of John, the quotes become more and more famous. Like you're going to be like, ooh, I've heard that one. Ooh, I've heard that one. More and more as we walk through the book of John. And by the time we get to John chapter 14, he's saying things like, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And I believe that that is Jesus highlighting this door aspect. That he is the only access to life and life abundantly. He's the only one. Life abundantly, by the way, doesn't mean that you get to live, and that you get to live rich, and that you get to live healthy, and that you get to live with perfect relationships. That's not what that means. Life abundantly means a life that is eternal, that none of those things can ever take away from you.
In His name.
It is life to the full. Life more than the world can contain. Life abundantly. And even the people who come in to steal and to kill and to destroy, who, by the way, often try to redefine abundant. Often the thief and the robber will try to tell you that it's abundant life now, today. This wasn't in my notes. The problem with prosperity teaching is not that it promises too much. It is guaranteed that in the life to come, you will have perfect wealth, perfect health, and perfect relationships. The problem with prosperity teaching is not what is promised, it's when it's promised. Jesus doesn't promise us those things in this life. Why would he promise us those things in this life? He did not have those things in this life. I remember hearing a pastor one time say, might I just implore you that whatever your definition of success is, it should be big enough to include Jesus. And as we heard from a very capable preacher 2 weeks ago, Brad said, man, maybe one of the least glorifying days from the looks of it was the day that Jesus died on the cross, but that was his greatest victory. We have to be really, really careful that we don't let people come in the side door on us and try to lead us to a health, wealth, and prosperity, name it and claim it gospel that offers the riches Christ promises in eternity today. Do you hear it? It's even more people unsubscribing from our YouTube channel. Destructive thieves help identify Jesus as the only life access. Do not be people of his, be sheep of his fold. Do not chase after the people who come and redefine life abundantly. Access to salvation belongs to Jesus alone. Imposter shepherds help reveal the true flock. Destructive thieves help identify Jesus as the only life access. And then this next one, I used a phrase that I couldn't not use it. So bear with me. Skittish hirelings help highlight Jesus as the good shepherd. Skittish hirelings. What's a hireling? A hireling is just a hired hand, doesn't have a stake, clocks in, clocks out, doesn't have a stake in the game, doesn't care about the sheep, doesn't care about the owner of the sheep. Hirelings are skittish. Let me see if I can show you in verse 11, where Jesus shifts off of the I am the door to the sheep to his new illustration, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The good? So, just real quick, isn't it so funny that he could say something like, verse 11, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. And that later he would be like, hey, I'm going to lay down my life for you. And the disciples would be like, what? Right? He says it so plainly. The question that he's asking is, do you have the ears to hear it? Do you have the ears to hear it? I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He who is a hired hand, that's the hireling there, and not a shepherd, who does not own the sheep, sees a wolf coming and goes, ah! I added that. And leaves the sheep and flees, and the wolf snatches them and scatters them. He flees because he is a hired hand who cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. Jesus is starting to broach on dangerous territory when it comes to this crowd right here. He is starting to speak of his Father. That's his heavenly Father, by the way. And they don't have ears to hear it yet, but they're going to start picking it up next week at the end of chapter 10. And the rocks look like they're going to fly, literally. And what Jesus says here is so scandalous that if it was not written by an apostle for us to read this morning, I would dare not say it. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. Do you realize what he is saying? He is saying that our connection with him as our shepherd and us as his sheep is as real and promised and lasting as the eternal connection between the eternal Son of God and the eternal Father. Let me cut across the field another way. Do you realize the spark of hope that this gives to the person who never feels like they're good enough for God? I read a prayer request from somebody just this morning who is afraid that God hates them. And what Jesus is saying in this passage is, I know you as my sheep, and you know me as your shepherd, just as I know my Father, and my Father knows me. Y'all still ain't getting it. Let me cut across the field another way. I've got somebody. Thank you, Robert. Dude, thank you. Come on, everybody, with Robert now. What this means is that there is nothing that can separate you from the love of Christ. If you are his. Nothing. There is absolutely nothing that can separate you from the love of Christ if you are his. That's the question in the song. Does Jesus, our Messiah, hold forever those he loves? He does. He does. And what this picture here is not a picture of all of these sheep holding on to Jesus as he walks. It is a picture of his voice reaching out to them and them following him willingly. And if the picture that he paints is not enough for you, might I just call you back again to the way that he is painting it, and that is that when his message was met with blank stares, and he said, I want you to hear the voice of your shepherd, and everybody's like, we don't get it. He's like, then let me keep talking. Skittish hirelings don't do that. What are we to make of these wolves? Wolves are similar to the thieves and the robbers in that they're there for their own benefit. I've been thinking a lot about my own role as a shepherd or an under shepherd. That's how we describe the function of elders in our church, is that we're shepherds. And I've been trying to piece this together. I for sure don't want to be a hireling. I don't want to be a shepherd that if for whatever reason the bank account dried up this week in our church, that suddenly like you wouldn't see me anymore. For real. I had to think about that this week, Richard. Would I do this for free? And I would. I would. Thank you for not making me work 80 hours a week to put food on my table for my family. Thank you. But I don't want my paycheck to start stirring up this hireling attitude in my heart. And so I was like, man, what's my role as a shepherd in light of this illustration that Jesus is painting? And I think I aspire to be a sheepdog. I can't think of a higher calling than one who also knows the voice of the shepherd. And as soon as the shepherd walks in, he's like, and I also recognize that if I were to extend that illustration, and I've had some conversations with some of you like this week that feel like this, but sometimes it maybe feels to you like I'm a little bit wolfish. That sometimes when one of you gets way out away from the flock, I have to listen to the shepherd, and if he whistles, I might nip at your heels sometimes to get you back in. Maybe I'm doing it right now as I preach this message. And maybe all of that is totally bogus because it's not in the text. Okay? So maybe I'm just one of the sheep who talks. I don't know. I know for sure I don't want to be a hireling. I know for sure I don't want to be a wolf. I don't want to be a thief. And I know that sometimes the shepherd goes, bad dog. And it's part of the reason that it's so important that I tell you, next year, my aim is to be in this pulpit 40 to 42 Sundays. We're trying to raise up more teachers in this church. Part of that is for my own health as we grow. But another part of it is I do not want to have to stand before our shepherd one day and give an account for causing an entire congregation of people to getting attuned to my voice. Do not follow my voice unless it is in as much as you hear your shepherd speaking through me. Do not listen to the voice of people on podcasts. Not all hirelings are in it for financial increase. Some hirelings are in it for influential increase. Some hirelings are in it for eyeball acquisition, not fund acquisition. Be very careful who you listen to, and be very careful that they sound like Jesus. Even the imposter shepherds, even the destructive thieves, even the skittish hirelings help highlight that Jesus is the good shepherd. How good is he? He says in verse 16, and I have other sheep that are not of this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock and one shepherd. Many scholars believe here that Jesus is talking, since he's talking almost exclusively to a Hebrew audience right here, that he's talking about us. He's talking about the Gentiles. He's like, no, I'm going to be everyone's shepherd. Jew and Gentile alike. And then he says, for this reason the Father loves me, because I lay down my life that I may take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This charge I have received from my Father. It's important to remember that as this narrative unfolds throughout the Gospel of John, the wolves are going to kill the shepherd. And what he says right here is, kill away. Yeah, I'll lay down my life for a minute, and I'll just pick it back up again. The fact that Jesus never leaves you or forsakes you is not merely a function of his care. It is also a function of his authority. He has authority to never leave you or forsake you, even though he is crucified on a cross. Wrap it up for us, John. Point 4. I don't often have point 4s. Verse 19. There was again a division among the Jews because of these words. Well, that's actually an increase from what we saw before, right? That's actually improvement from what we saw. Okay, well, at least now there's some who are like, ooh, I'm with that. I can hear that. I can follow that. I can go with that. And there's some who are like, no. And what are these people saying? Many of them said, he has a demon and is insane. Why listen to him? Which, by the way, if Jesus is not who he says he is, if he is not speaking the truth, that is an apt conclusion. But Jesus is who he says he is, and he is speaking the truth, which means they couldn't be more wrong. Others, notice the juxtaposition. Many said that. Others, maybe meaning not as many, said, these are not the words of someone who is oppressed by a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind? They're starting to draw conclusions. That is so good. They are starting to draw conclusions from his works and his words. They're starting to follow. They're starting to hear the voice of their shepherd. They're starting to be called out from among the other sheep as the true flock. They're starting to listen. They're starting to believe. And I want to leave you with this. Some will hear. Some will come in. Some will know Jesus. I don't know if you notice, we got some. And then this harsh reality. Some will hear, some will come in, some will know Jesus. The rest are not saved. Can you hear it? Unsubscribe. We talk about the gospel here at our church. The gospel is good news. Don't pack up yet. The gospel is good news that while we were still sinners, Jesus was born and he died on the cross, paying the price for our sin, our shame, our separation from God. He died on the cross, and then he did exactly what he said he would do. He laid down his life, and he took it up again. He rose from the dead. Do you know part of the reason they don't know exactly where Jesus was buried? Because he's not in there. Because he rose from the dead. He went to heaven, and he is coming back again. And when he does, I heard a preacher say it this week, there's not going to be any more theological debates. No one will be saying, Buddha is Lord. No one will be saying Allah is Lord. All knees will bow. Every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord to the glory of the Father. There's not going to be any confusion on that day. The question is, will he find you as part of his fold on that day? Have you heard the voice of your shepherd? And if you have, here's the response. Paul lays it out in Romans 10:9. That if you confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord, and you believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Amen. You will come in. You will hear the voice of your shepherd, and you will be saved. And if you have not done that, I want to encourage you not to leave from this place until you have bowed your knee and confessed with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord. I'm going to invite the worship team to come on up and to prepare to close us with a song. Do you need to make this motion of surrender today? Do you need to hear the voice of your shepherd from this passage saying, "Come and follow me"? Do you need to surrender? If you do, I'd love to lead you in a prayer that's basically the content of that verse. And so if you need to do that today, I encourage you to do it. And sometimes you'll hear people say, well, just say it in your heart. Yes, I believe that God can hear what you say in your heart, but I also can't ignore that that passage says confess with your mouth. Right. And so if you have never surrendered your life to Jesus Christ, I want to encourage you to confess with your mouth and believe in your heart right now. Father, I confess that Jesus is Lord, and I'm not. I believe that you raised him from the dead. Save me in his name.